Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very different and strange kind of show today. There will be cards and readings as well, but we thought we'd do something a little bit different. So, before I tell you what we're going to do, please, everybody, introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Izabela from Tarot by Izabela.
Meten from Plutonic Planes.
And I'm Gary from Alternative Interactions. So, we've been talking and we thought, wouldn't it be an interesting experiment idea to look at books or films, particularly films for me, that have some kind of message in them that I wonder if they would relate to our current situation. I wonder if there's a correlation between some of these old famous books or these films that we've all probably watched, hopefully, and what's going on. And so Meten's brilliant idea this time was The Lord of the Rings. So today we're going to look at The Lord of the Rings, some of the characters, what they did, how it reflects into our reality today, and if any questions come up, Izabela's going to pull some cards. So, first of all, hopefully everybody is aware of The Lord of the Rings. It's one of the only books I ever read. Which wasn't a fishing book. And I've seen the film several times. Izabela, you seen the film several times?
Well, at least once a year, we watch all of them, all three of them. The first one and The Journey. No, the first one is The Fellowship of the Ring. And then The Two Towers and The Return of the King. So we watch them at least once a year and discuss them and the same procedure the next year. And they never get old. And I don't know how many times we watched them, but watched them many, many, many times here.
And Meten, how many times have you read the books or seen the films?
Uh, I saw the film like once, but I never understood it. But I have trouble understanding sometimes sequential images, especially if it's action films. It's too abrupt and chaotic for me. I prefer artistic films that are slow and broad-stroked. And so I read the book when I was younger. I read The Hobbit and then the other books when I was young, and then I reread them this past year.
Superb, superb. So let's get into some of the characters, shall we? And see what we think or where they could be in this realm today. Now, I think it'd be fun to start on the dark side and then move to the lighter side. So, if we begin with Saruman, Saruman was the wizard, and then we've got Sauron, who was the all-seeing eye in the film. So, two characters that are linked very much in the film that play a pivotal role in the setting up of the darkness and the return of evil. So, what thoughts do we have on that, Meten, please?
Well, the title reveals everything. The title is called The Lord of the Rings. So it's the idea that the symbolism right there is the planet Saturn, because Saturn is a planet that has many rings on it. And these are variations of frequencies that, according to astrology, hold this realm together. And so it's the idea that Saturn controls third density reality and how we see and perceive in this level of frequency, in this third density. And in the book, my understanding is this character is he's the main, and it's the main antagonist. and it rules a particular land in the whole world of Lord of the Rings. And it's created this ring, or it has worked through humans rather, to create a ring of power. And it's very interesting to me. I always want to quote Nathaniel Hawthorne in his short story, The Young Goodman Brown, where there's this quote that says, "The devil is never most powerful as he is when he is in the heart of man." And so it was man that actually created the ring. It wasn't Sauron that created it, but man was guided to create the ring. So, kind of like that short story, evil expresses itself through the human heart, and it's something that's always with us. Because our delicate life is such that we're always making choices. And if we're not in our bodies, if we're not present, then we could make at any point a wrong, maybe not a wrong choice, but not a very wise choice. And so just like in real life, in the story, we have man that creates this ring. Of course, man is deceived into making this ring, which reflects the influence of a Judeo-Christian, religious programming, right? The idea that man is the one that falls through the influence of the serpent, or what have you, in various religions. And so this idea carries forth, and so this force of Sauron rules a part of the earth. Like a part of that earth is associated with Sauron, and it's his territory. And what's fascinating is that this journey of man for redemption, because the world is coming under darkness in Lord of the Rings, so there's a journey that has to be taken to this land of Mordor, to this land or Sauron, where this ancient being rules, and in effect trick Sauron into not understanding what's going to happen. But the whole point is to destroy this ring, because if this ring becomes utilized by Sauron or through him, then the world will change and shift. But it's fascinating in the story because Sauron is not an actual personage. He doesn't have the ring. He doesn't have the power to take on physical form. All he can do is possess. And similarly, his characters, all they can do is possess. And it's fascinating because, in this world, we're always looking for, when we're young, when we're stuck in victimhood, we're always looking to name a victimizer, right? So we can be the victim, or vice versa, the dance of life, of a lower frequency life. And what occurs in this story is the real truth about existence, that all of us have a heart, and the heart is like a vortex. It's like a portal. And it's like there's like an alcove in the heart where there's a flame that burns. And there's a whisper in each heart that seeks to blow that flame out, and empty the heart of meaning and feeling and beingness. And that perhaps is that whisper of darkness or evil or shadow that comes from ignoring the heart and what it is to be human. And so I think that's the danger that is posed in Lord of the Rings, because again, there's no real actualization of beingness from this character of Sauron. Like, he's just a force. He's just an eye. He's an archontic eye. He's not embodied. There's no body there. And even the forces that he works through, the demonic entities that come into the realm, they're not really there. You know what I mean? They're on other frequency levels. They're only visible when one of the main characters puts on the ring, and then he's in another world, right? He's in another frequency. And so it's fascinating to observe that the story of Lord of the Rings is just really a story of humans, hobbits, elves, dwarves, and, whatever other kind of friendly beings to humans. And really, that's it. There's nothing else there. There is no Sauron. There is no forces of darkness. Those are all whispers from some other realm. Does that make sense, you guys? I'll stop there. I'll let you guys have fun with that one.
Isabella, what do you think about that? Is that the way you see the film, and how you see this evil overlord, if we put it that way?
Mm. There's a lot of talk that this world is ruled by some very evil power on the top, invisible, and there are a lot of puppets below. And the Lord of the Rings shows that in a way. We cannot really touch the evil power, but its actions are visible. Its creations are visible through orcs and goblins and trolls, or those Nazguls and dragons and so on. And their force and their evilness is also visible in the movie, just like we see it here today. And there are kings and powerful persons that are possessed by this evil force, and they're doing its bidding because the evil force, in exchange, promises power, slaves, big areas of land, money, whatever it comes if you serve this evil force. And we can see this in our world through the politicians and the evil decisions and the wars and the corruptions and so on. So it's like it's mirroring what is going on here and what is going on in the Lord of the Rings. And that evil force have all kinds of puppets. It has humans. It has demons, non-visibles. It has all kinds of strange creatures, from spiders to snakes to whatever, dark creatures. And what is also very striking, all those evil creatures, they are hungry for flesh and blood. Just like we hear now with certain files that come up with beef jerky and using, yeah, little ones and innocent people as food. And most of the people are not aware of this evil force. We can go back to the Shire. Everyone lives their day. It's going on. They're doing their chores. They're harvesting. They're chatting. They're not aware what evil is surrounding them. Just a few people, the conspiracy theorists, are aware, and they went off to the journey to battle against this evil, to save those that are asleep. That's one aspect. And there's a lot of more things, but if we are talking about the Sauron and his managing all of this, making agreements with different forces from foreign lands just to gain total and global power. Something like that is going on. Has been going on for a long time here.
I agree. Beautifully said, Meten, and also Isabella, brilliantly executed. We're seeing a force that we can't put our hands on. We can't touch it. But this force has an effect on everyone's lives, regardless. And those that choose to walk towards this force seem to be looked after in a different kind of way, a different set of rules almost applied to these people as applied to everybody else. And it's almost as if, that they did a deal with somebody. They signed the deal. We see it in pop music when we hear it. They signed a deal with the devil. Because once they've signed their name in ink, they then rise up and they become famous and make lots of money. And those that don't ever sign the deal may get one or two hits if they're lucky, but ultimately they will never ever go to the heights, perceived heights anyway, of these others. And for me, that's a very interesting concept where we definitely have a force that is running the show that we can't name. We can't really put our finger on it. Other conspiracy theorists like David Icke, he'll call them something. I can call them something. Izabela may have her own name. Meten may have his own name. But in the Lord of the Rings, they actually name the thing. They show it. They name it. And the all-seeing eye is very much reptilian in shape and style as well. It's not a human eye, it's a reptilian eye.
Yeah.
And that I think is very, very, very interesting. So perhaps before we move on from that, Izabela, what do the cards tell us about this? Is the book a true reflection of where we are at the moment, please? In
That's a
that
good one.
respect,
Hmm?
with the evil eye over, because we see it in the money, don't we? In the American dollar, there's a pyramid with the all-seeing eye. We see the all-seeing eye quite a bit. Is the all-seeing eye that we encounter in this kind of realm that's put upon us the same all-seeing eye in the book?
That's a good question. Is this the same old seeing eye? Here we have a well. You take up the water. You have a treasure chest with a lot of money. The chariot and 3 of cups. Here we have fire, a big fairy, and a chili pepper. I would say that water is the same water. It's from the same well. It has traveled around, and like a treasure chest, it's a part of a big treasure. So this all-seeing eye has many forms, many names, but it's from the same well. And it travels. Here we have a ferry going over water, so it's on different continents. So yes, I would say absolutely yes. And 3 of cups is also celebration. So there are a lot of celebrations towards this all-seeing eye. And a lot of holidays or cultural big things are dedicated to this all-seeing eye. And it's supposed to be something joyful, something happy, but it's from the same well, from the same water, the same evil. That is my explanation through the cards.
Thanks.
Meten, any thoughts
Interesting.
on that?
It's just You know, fiction. What was it that quote? Gary said this quote before we started. I think it was a Mark Twain quote. Quote, truth is stranger than fiction, right?
Mm.
Just it just reveals that sense that there's nothing that we read or that we see, there's nothing that's not mirroring back to us the nature of this world, you know? All of it is just mirrors constantly reminding us. And the books are no different. The books are like just more ancient forms of media or older forms of media that are telling us the same thing. It's all the same story over and over again in our faces, you know, all the time. And that's what it is. That's the essence of it. That's the truth of it. That what they're talking about in Lord of the Rings and what the media talks about, what conspiracies thought, it's all the same. So it's just the same story, just different clothing, you know? There's many other fantasy novels too, like Wheel of Time, and you know, and there's others that all are telling this story over and over again in their own ways, you know? It's just variations, you know, creative variations, Dune as well. And yeah, this is yeah, that's it. But thanks for that. Yeah, that's brilliant, Isabella.
I found it fascinating as well. And it is, as Meten very clearly says, it's the mirror image of really what's going on. And that does take me on to the other character that I spoke about, which is Saruman, who is the White Wizard, played by Christopher Lee, who in himself is a very, very interesting character in the films. You know, Christopher Lee, um, there's more about that man than we really do understand, and he certainly lived and breathed that book in his own life because he read it every year, I think for 40 years or something strange like that. So we have this character played by Christopher Lee, who is one of the doers. He's an enabler. So there has to be a link between this all-seeing eye, this energy, whatever you want to call it, and the physical, if we take it. So we have the metaphysical, then we have the physical. And Saruman is the one that enables via the crystal ball. It wasn't crystal ball though. It was called something. I can't remember what it was called now. Can any of you remember what they were
Was it
called?
like a scrying mirror? Maybe it was like a
Like
scrying.
a Palantir. No, it's not. It was not Palantir.
No. That's a group in the books. There is something called the Palantir, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, I think it is the Palantir. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the crystal ball. Yeah,
yeah,
some
yeah.
kind of
So
ball.
yeah, yeah. It's a seeing stone. So it's a black scrying mirror, and via
Okay.
via this scrying mirror, ultimately, his mind or his heart, as Miten spoke earlier, is twisted. It's turned, and he becomes the physical doer, the one that instigates these requirements. And we've kind of seen this kind of thing almost, and I'm not going to say it's the same, but if we look at it, we have in biblical books something passing down information to a person who then acts upon that. And I'm not saying that's the same in any way, shape, or form, but
Mm.
I am saying that we actually have stories of this kind of thing, which is again part of a book, part of a teaching. And there we have in this book itself, Lord of the Rings, the connection between the etheric energy into via a device to create something that's moving forwards, and to somebody who then starts to chop down trees and starts to dig a hole in the ground and fundamentally brings the underworld up via creating an army. So again, I'll go to Meten next. What are your thoughts on the enableization of this?
Well, it's what strikes me first, that especially that Isabella reminded me of, is some of the beings that are inhabited by these forces are created beings. Like the orcs, they're not natural creations. They're actually cloned constructs that are created by Sauron. And they're like clones from the underworld, dark clones of the underworld. So that's fascinating, because that as I've been saying with my thesis, there's nothing here but us. But there's a whisper of darkness that occurs and is supported by the night force, by nighttime, and animates it. And so all these forces that support the agenda of this eye, of this Saturnian eye, they're all animated by the spirit. And so they're all possessed. They're all just, they're nothing but just directions of that agenda. And I think that's what can become of humans when their heart is emptied. Another force can take over, and that agenda can come in and take over. And that's the risk of, that's the risk of being human, and what it is to either possess your own heart or have it possessed by something else. And so that's was that a correct response? What
Yeah,
was there
yeah,
anything
yeah,
else you're
perfect.
missing?
Yeah. Because no, you're bang on. Absolutely, because we have somebody who created something, but they're ultimately soulless vessels. They're a creation that this energy has gone through via magic into creating something that can then walk in this realm that is not of this realm.
Like clones. Clones. We're talking a lot about clones nowadays. Or he's a clone, or she is a clone, or I will not give any names, but on many channels, a lot of talk about clones and people that are sure about. There are a lot of clone doing going on, and that famous rich people, leaders, they create their clones. They have a couple of clones, but they have their subconscious, the memories put into that clone, so they can continue doing their deeds. Or the clone can be their face outwards, but they are still hidden somewhere else.
Very much so. Very much so. And that certainly leads to a question for me, which would be a card reading on this one as well. Unless you've got further that you want to
Yeah,
expand
there
on
was
this
something I
specific.
wanted to say. Wizards. We have Saruman. He's dressed in white. Mhm. And but he's an evil wizard. He turned into evil. He was a good wizard from the beginning, helping all the creatures and taking care of nature. And then the evil force possessed him. And he was afraid of the evil force, of the big eye in the sky. And what religions preach that you should be afraid of the big deity in the sky? Because if you are not afraid, the deity gonna punish you, just as Saruman says. And Saruman lives in a tower, very much like a church tower. And all wizards, they have their rituals when they perform their kind of ceremonies and magic. They have a special procedure. And they have followers. Saruman wants followers, people or creatures that do as he says. So there I see also a link to some big religions from nowadays associated to the eye in the evil eye of Sauron.
Very much so. I agree. Meten, have you got anything further on that before I ask a question for Isabella, or if you've got a question for the
I
couple?
did, but I think I lost it. Let me see. It was related to what Isabella was saying about how what we have is we have all these forces and they're oh yeah. So the idea that, to obey, right? To obey some force that's bigger than us supposedly or above us. The idea that we're not good enough, that we have to submit to the will of someone who knows more than us. The idea that we don't have direct access to divinity, that we need mediation. All these ideas that's over. We're living in an age where it's going to be the end of religions. But before that moment is realized through the consciousness of humanity, all the religions will well up into a grand battle and power to represent themselves as one religion to see if they can take over humanity's will and humanity's heart. And we have to be aware and present and know that this is not some homecoming where all of a sudden these different facets of power have agreed to become one and it's so special, and now we all have one thing we can be together. We have to understand that it was never not that way.
Mm.
All these religions were the same. They were all positions of power to take away our inner power. And that's so we would never look, in here. Instead, we would always be looking above,
And don't
not a,
remember the fear factor. You have to fear.
as the example given with Saruman. Saruman lost his position. I mean, he was a wizard. He was for, the forces of the humans and of life and of living and the heart. But because of fear, he was taken over. So that's true. So, and that is the key, because when that question comes to all of us, when that's posed before each of us to respond to, if we have fear in our hearts, if there's some kind of agenda that's posing some kind of, do this or else, we have to be strong enough to recognize what it really is and not fall into that. And, because that's what it's likely going to be. That's likely what they have cooking, for the next meal for us, the next big kind of movie. And it's going to be a grand epic. I mean, they're great entertainers, So, there'll be some action, there'll be some comedy, you know what I mean? They're good at what they do. And then they'll slip that, that fear in somewhere. Hey, you got to do, you got to do this, this is we're all doing this, so you got to be with us. It reminds me of this scene at the end of this film, this great television series by Stephen King called Storm of the Century. And it was this like dark being that came into this town, and he kept killing people, and he kept saying, "Give me what I want and I will go away." And he would like write that everywhere. And finally the whole town came together and said, "Well, why don't we just give him what he wants?" And then the main leader of the town, the righteous man in the town, said, "No, we don't have to give him what he wants. Like, we together can stand up and say, no, get out of here. You don't have the right to come take our freedom away and kill our people, kill our loved ones." But the whole town, as Isabella's noting, they were in terror from his threats. So they all said, no, 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 we can't, we're terrified. He's gonna do more. He's gonna kill us all. Let's just give him what he wants. And what did he want? He wanted the son of the heroic character. And the heroic character was like, no, what are you guys thinking? And, he needed a successor, right? He needed a new body to possess. Same story. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all the same story.
right? It's just possession. They don't have they don't even have enough. They don't have a heart to be able to create their own body. All they have is clones. And so what happened? He got his successor, and and he got his will, and the town was lost, and the main character, lost and destroyed. Very sad, very dark side version, but a very brilliant series in showing that moment of truth. And what happened in that moment of truth is they gave in to fear, and that's how they lost.
Yeah.
That's how they lost.
And to that, I have to mention also on high school, close to where I live, there are written in big letters, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I have always been so, oh my God, how stupid. How can you fearing God be a beginning of something good, of wisdom? And that is what is being taught out to young people.
The fear of God is the beginning of possession.
Yeah, but here they put wisdom.
No, no, it's just so ridiculous. That's what they really meant.
It's fundamentally divide and conquer, isn't it? I mean, if we go back to the main religions and the main books, it's almost certain that they were scribed by the same kind of energy. They have the same source. They're the same control mechanism. Doesn't matter where, what you want to call it, where they come from. It's always the same. And then we get subdivisions of this as well. But it's all about divide and conquer because there's three of us here today. And it's like, well, Izabela, we're at a meal. Isabel wants to steal your food, Meten. And then Isabella, Meten wants to steal your knife and fork so you can't eat your food. And straight away,
Yeah.
you're both against each other
Yeah.
because you think one's going to steal your food and one's going to stop you being able to eat your food.
Mm.
And so there's this distrust between two people who are actually identical in the same, in the way that they are. But it's just that division, that cross part of the manipulation of the perceived reality that changes the outlook and the view of these people. And that's what we're seeing very much so. The divide and conquer, which is very, very clever. And we did see that in Lord of the Rings as well. There are parts of the film where the horsemen didn't believe that Rowan or whoever it was going to come and join them to help them in the battle. And they felt that they were alone. They felt that they were divided. Old alliances, old allegiances had been, had, time, dissolved and changed this. But ultimately, when the pinch comes to the push, everybody did join. Now, my question is, and it kind of goes back to the clone or the non-soul part of the army that was created. There's a lot of talk at the moment about people going from one dimension to another dimension and a large percentage of the population not joining us. Would it be in the film scenario, would it be that those that would not join us were the ones that were created?
Cloned, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fundamentally, a control. Even if they're not clones, they're a controlled, as in the frequency going into them that they follow is not that of their own true self.
Okay. Those who are staying, if they are the cloned one, created by this evil force. I was just thinking, isn't it strange that those who began to follow the evil force, they began to become ugly, distorted, mutilated. And have you seen the latest Fashion Week in Paris? All the fashion look like this. And one can wonder who is behind.
We see that also currently with certain stars that have changed their appearance, and some have lost huge amounts of weight
Mm.
and look dramatically different, and some have changed the way they dress and look dramatically different, and they're no longer the same person they were outwardly, at least into the public.
Yep. Yes, those who are staying behind, I think they are the clones. Here we have Seven of Cups. Seven of Cups for me is like an illusion, like something is not true, something false, a lie, because they are not real, they are something false. And we have the Hanged Man. So they are not really in right position, those who are not coming. They are upside down, an inversion of something. And here we have a Page of Wands. For me, Page of Wands is also school. Those clones have been taught, they have been programmed to act and say and behave in certain ways. So they will not be so suspicious. Someone new is entering your life. Poverty. So yeah, if you don't really have a heart or a soul, you are real poor. They are poor souls, and there will be a crossroad for them. One part of humanity goes left, the other one goes right. Here we are cloud with rain and mobile phone and an axe. They will be chopped down. Sorry. Yeah, but chopped down. And mobile phone, it gives signal. So they are talking to their master. The master gives the orders to them through mobile. It works through 5G, 3G, through the ether. So they have the programming through on other ways, on other frequencies than normal people. So my answer, yeah, clone ones, there is two ways, left or right. There are not 100 different pathways for all of them. There are ones that go left, the other one goes to be chopped down, legs.
Just like what happened ultimately to Saruman and the fate that we see in the film, and also fundamentally the clone army, that when the eye of Sauron collapses, the eye collapses, all the clones drop.
Mm.
We've also seen it in other films. Recently, I watched The Mummy Returns, or the Mummy films, the old ones, and fundamentally, those armies that were coming to fight, as soon as the leader
Mm.
or the entity controlling them, the mummy, died or was stopped, all the entities collapsed and were gone.
Mm.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And those controlled by the eye, boom, they will be gone.
So my next question would be, and again, we could probably do a part two to this because it's gonna, it's gonna go on perhaps. We're talking about the kind of the beginning of the film, the nuts and bolts and the control of the mechanism of the beginning of the film without all the intricacies. I wonder where we are. Where do you think we are currently within the film? Because ultimately in the film, they jump on these boats, a lot of the key characters, and they sail away somewhere else. And they leave, the elves go, they ultimately leave the men or women, in this realm on their own. And currently we're on our own here. We don't have those entities or those energies that we probably had once with us anymore. So this is the age of men. This is the realm of men currently. So I wonder where we are with that. And I know we haven't even got into Gollum and Bilbo and Gandalf and all the other stuff. But where do you think we are at the moment in the film? Because are we yet to see some of the major battles? Have we already had some of the battles? What tests have we had? Because I think that
Mm.
procedure was one of the big tests that we went through some years ago. And some continue to go through. So, Meten, I'll ask you first, where do you think we are in the film? Do you think are we halfway through, two, three quarters? Are we near the end? What do you feel?
I think I see what's occurring now as I don't know. I think I'd have to reflect on that further because a part of me wants to say that we're in the part of the film where we still, as a whole, as humanity, we still think that the movie's reality. So I don't, but again, that's the same for the story. The only ones who know what's going on is the gather is the has to do with the gathering, with the elves. Those are the only ones who know. And so they've been given their mission. So us, as aware ones, as awakened ones, we've been given our mission, even though we might not know exactly what it is. And so we all have our own, I mean, this is such a cliche to say, but our cross to bear in a sense. So we all have our own fate. And too often I'm seeing that when people awaken, they're like, oh, let's all do something together. And that's that evil pull to like go back and create some kind of mass gathering so you can feel safe, because that's the fear coming in. Instead of accepting your own fate, even if you don't know exactly what it is. And it's kind of the ideas of no man can escape his fate. But it's also the ideas of if a character realizes and knows his fate, and the example is Frodo. So Frodo is given, the task to hold the ring. I mean, it's the greatest task, and he's like the smallest physical being. And when he accepts that task, he himself does not know the outcome. He himself wonders about it. And as we progress through the books, he at some point just decides that he's going to die. And he starts perseverating on this theme of doom. And there's some quotes I have that I love. One is, "For now we come to the edge of doom. Where your coming is to us as the footstep of doom." And he says it himself in many parts, that his path is a path of doom. But he's with Sam, the wise, and Sam is so courageous and intense. Sam has his back, he's with him. But Frodo, because of his own particular fate, his goal, he can only see that, right? So he has like a narrow band of understanding. But both understand something very clear. And what they understand is that even though they started off the journey with Aragorn, who will later be crowned a king, and with Gandalf, who is this grand being, right, that comes to help humanity in times of weakness, in times of challenge, right? He's not even human.
Mhm.
They understand at some point that, wait a second, we started out with Gandalf and Aragorn, and we felt all confident, and we were gonna, do it. But they're nowhere around now. Now they're in their own journeys, and so it's up to. So it's not. So when that question is asked, where are we? There is no we. I mean, there is a larger we, but we have our own individuated destinies. And in some ways, it's not even for us to know exactly how the outcome of that will be. Only that that's the path before us that we want to follow. And it's not a path of fear. And that's what helps us understand. I mean, I think Frodo's the best example for that because he accepted what he was going to do. And in order to do that, he had to accept that he could die. And that's what he had to do, and so that's what he did. But he also was aware on some level of the other forces around him, because at the end of the novel he said that he realized had Schmeagol not taken the ring, that he wouldn't have had the strength to throw the ring down into the fires. And so that was a realization. But I hesitate to use the we, because sure, there's groups of us who are aware and have awoken. Yes, that's true. But we still each have our own fate, whatever that may be. I'll leave it at that.
There's a couple of quotes two from Gandalf, which I think really do sum this up before we go on to Izabela. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future. They're not talking about a group. They're not talking about a movement there, Gandalf. He's talking about the individual shining that light, being the beacon and changing everything via for me, the 100 monkey effect. Making your own change, walking your own path in your own power. You're unstoppable because you're your own you. You've connected to you. And that's a really empowering thing. You don't need groups of people around you. And the other one is, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. It's our choice. It's our choice what we choose to do, ultimately. Do we want to join the flock? Or do we want to change it by stepping out and going on our own individual journeys? And at the point in which the Fellowship of the Ring split up, it made the task of the all-seeing eye particularly difficult, because there was not one small group to take away. They were spread everywhere, and he never saw it coming because he could not see the smallest person changing everything. Izabela.
Powerfully said, Gary. Thanks.
Well, where are we now? For me, it feels like we are heading for the final battle. When we think that this group of people or this army will take away the evil, but that's not the case. As you said, Gary, the smallest one will be the ones who will be the key of taking away the evil. But at the same time, corrupt entities can be used to as a mean to take out the evil. So we should not judge too quickly that this person or that person is good or evil or baddie or goodie, because we don't know which role they will play at the final battle. So be a little bit careful and with the world. Oh no, he's evil. Oh no, she's this or she's that. Because we don't know, as you said, the fate or what lies behind everyone's task to get rid of the evil eye in the sky.
We don't know who Gollum is, do we?
No.
We can't see Gollum in the book and in the film. It's very clear who Gollum is, and ultimately Gollum, the tortured creature that he was ultimately the one that destroyed the ring. And that twist of fate is still yet to be done and yet to be seen by anybody.
We should not give any names here because they will start an explosion in the comment section.
Yeah. So we'll just say we don't know who Gollum is. And we really don't. But Gollum could be somebody who you least suspect, or Gollum could be somebody in the headlines. And the point is, we don't know, and we're not in a position to know because it's not really our business to know. Our business is to do what we should be doing in our own way to allow the situation to happen, just as Sam and Frodo created the situation that allowed Gollum to do the thing he did. So I wonder where of the time, it's nearly been an hour. I wonder if we just do one last card and Meten's. Oh, you had frozen for a little while there, Meten. But you're back. I wonder if we could just have one card reading about
Yep.
where the cards think we are currently in this journey that we're on, beginning, middle, or close to the end.
Where are we in this journey? Mhm. Those ones. Mhm. Here we have 6 of Wands, King of Coins, and 4 of Cups. Here we have a giraffe, someone dancing, and an old movie camera, film camera. Expectation, worthy, and here is a snake with a knife inside of it. According to the cards, we are closer to the end than the beginning. We will be soon able to see things from above, like a giraffe watches things from above. And those who are worthy will be celebrating the big party. The snakes will have knives in them. So we are close to the end, I would say. The snakes will not be happy, disappointment. And it will all be recorded somehow. Not digital, analog recording. Meaning that all the battle, all the history of the snakes, and the snakes here symbolize the evilness, will be recorded. So no one will forget and no one will want to have it back again. Mm. And since it's an old movie camera, it cannot be tampered with. It's on a movie, on a tape. But according to the cards, we are closer to the end of the movie than the beginning or the middle.
You.
Mm.
Any last words, Meten? And perhaps we'd like to do a second part to this because there's so much about the journey and everything else that we haven't even touched upon, you know.
Mm.
But any last words for this part of the proceedings, Meten?
Let's see. I think I've said a lot. I think maybe something else to mention since we've talked in the larger themes of the collective and the shifting into individuated awareness. I think that was a real key to our discussion today because we've all kind of reflected on it and expressed that the birth of consciousness is occurring at this time through individuation. And so Izabela's reminder that fear is a detector for going on a wrong path, for getting lost on a path. And I think also individualism is a key marker for going on your path, for staying on your path and not becoming lost, because it is a time of individuation, especially as in the transition to the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix according to human design next year. That's about individuated awareness. And that's going to change from tribal consciousness, which is all about my group versus your group, right? All the divide and conquer art of war tactics that we see playing out all the time and that you were discussing, Gary. So I would say that was a key point in our discussion, our key theme that we've shared. And that was also evident in Frodo's fate. Because even though him and Sam were together, like Sam was protecting him and they were together on their final journey, Sam had his own kind of perspective and they just respected each other just enough. And the same with Schmiegel, like they didn't kill him. Many were saying that, pity that Sam didn't kill Schmiegel earlier. But later on in the book, there's a quote that says it was pity itself as to why pity and mercy as for why Sam did not kill him. And it was also respect of his greater individual fate. So these themes of individuation are like really strong in the novels. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah, and Gandalf mentioned that Smeagol have a very important role to play. So he was foreseeing the future. But that is another story we can go into next time.
Yeah, yeah, very well rounded up, Meten, and thank you, Izabela. I think it's been very interesting, and I think there's a lot more of this film to go, decode wise. And I know we've just brushed over the surface of it, time wise. We kind of jumped to the end very quickly, but there's a lot to play out in the middle. I think needs to be looked at and dissected into where we are and how we're feeling and what could play out. So with that, I think we need a second part. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe to Meten of Plutonic Planes, to Izabela of Tarot by Izabela, and to myself, Gary, from Alternative Interactions. And let us know, would you like a part two where we dive deeply into the middle part of the journey? Because we haven't even talked about the Ents. I love the Ents. I want to talk about the Ents, the trees. So, with that,
Elf.
everybody, there we go. So, with that, everybody, bye bye. Thank you,
Bye
everybody.
bye.